Traditional Maori parenting. As I said, Maori are in increasingly diverse households. Almost 50% of Maori children are now being raised in sole parent households, almost all of them headed by women. That has massive repercussions. Many of you who are familiar with the literature around our sole parenting, for example, will know what's been called and described as the feminisation of poverty. So the way in which this acts is a kind of dual trap, where both because women are the heads of households, but also because they are Indigenous First Nations, they end up basically being reliant on government assistance to raise children, and there are higher numbers of children growing up in those households. There are, however, a number of models associated with seeing this in a positive way, how we can actually help whānau flourish, and particularly some recent work by Mason Jury and Te Kani Kingi and a number of other people called Pua Waitanga, I haven't written it up there but I can, looks at what are the whānau capacities, what are the inherent capacities that actually bring, if you like, the strengths of families, because they cope with enormous adversity, and there is incredible resilience, even in the face of all of these changes and a lot of accumulated need. So, whānau capacities, what are they? What are the particular skills within that family? What are the particular attributes of that family? Whānau cohesion, how are they able to pull together? Whānau connectedness, are they able to be connected together? Do they come together over certain events? And whānau resilience, what have they learned about surviving and what do they pass on to each other? These capacities reflect things like educational achievement, lifestyles, access to technology or other similar. Connectedness can also refer to the utilisation of social institutions, and that includes, of course, schools, participation in activities such as sport or recreation, which has been hugely important for Māori, and also in connectedness to community affairs, the ability to engage in other civic activities. And resilience here in the report refers to futures planning, the evidence of positive change for families over time, and opportunities for transmission of those values and knowledge between generations, the ability to hold on to our heritage, but also to participate in a modern society with strong whānau leadership. So what I hope you're hearing here is that in fact there is, despite adversity, a resilience and an opportunity and a desire to see what it is that we do well and how well we have survived, and to recognise that we still want to hold on and to maintain that cultural heritage as a central part of who we are. So traditional Māori parenting, I've referred to hapu, whānau and iwi, well not to hapu, but I'll explain it, hapu, whānau and iwi as the central structures of New Zealand's society. So iwi are the larger tribal groupings, which were the traditional, particularly military and political alliances between groups. Hapu are the sub-tribal groupings. Now they were the reality. They were people, villages with whom we would interact, and other whānau groupings with whom we would have close relationships and possibly even military loyalties and intermarriage. And whānau, which is a wider extended family, which was the basis of all village life. Our whaia and our matua. Whaia means mother, but interestingly, whaia also refers to auntie, because for Māori they're indistinguishable. And auntie is also our mother. And I see a few heads nodding because it's familiar, right? And matua refers to our parents, but matua also refers to an elder whom we respect, somebody who's revered, who has a connection to us because, again, they have authority and a relationship with us. Tuakana and taina is an idea I wanted to share with you. A tuakana is an older brother or sibling, and a taina is a younger brother or sibling, a younger sister. And these are important ideas, particularly in an educational context, because we've used these ideas as an important part of building up some initiatives, particularly around developing equity in the education system at the University of Auckland. And I think there's enormously more potential than even we've begun to experiment with. But you may well recognise that tuakana and taina Not only were aunties and uncles and grandparents expected to and actively part of their children's and grandchildren's lives, but also your siblings were. Now, I grew up as the eldest of 6 siblings, but I also had 6 cousins that I grew up with my grandparents. So I had a combination of 12 in total in 2 parallel families. And being the eldest, of course, I was the bossiest. But I had an obligation, a responsibility. My responsibility as an older was to care for the younger. So, in very practical ways, I had to actually provide care. I had to think for them in terms of the decisions that would be best for them, and also provide day-to-day nurturing care. And also, the taina had an obligation. Those were reciprocal responsibilities. So they would be responsible to the tuakana, a degree of respect, but also for learning from the tuakana. So this responsibility, this relationship of an elder and a younger, I really see as a possibility and growing, very sympathetic with the roots of empathy idea. The taina, the baby in our family, and the bringing together of those children. Yesterday I had the privilege of going to Market Lane School, and if there's any children, and Tom, I know you're here from Market Lane School, thank you so much for the honour of going there. And I saw, grade 1 and 2 and grade 7 and 8 children. The way in which they become a circle around that baby. This is about a tuakana taina relationship in my interpretation. This is about recognising, that we learn from our youngest ones, as well as the youngest ones learning and looking up to the older ones. This is an integral relationship, and something, again, that I think we can really expand and is very in keeping with what you're doing in Roots of Empathy.